What if I told you that the Roman Senate, yes, that Roman Senate, once helped murder their own king, and then covered it up for 500 years? This isn't some conspiracy theory. This is the untold story of Rome's first government. Today, you'll discover how 100 old men secretly controlled Rome's legendary kings, the shocking ritual that happened every time a king died, why the Senate had the power to literally erase rulers from history, and the brutal betrayal that changed Western civilization forever. Forget everything you think you know about the Roman Senate. In 753 BCE, when Romulus founded Rome, the Senate wasn't a democratic body debating laws and giving voice to the people. It was something far more mysterious and far more powerful than most realize. Romulus, the legendary founder, handpicked 100 of the oldest and wealthiest men from Rome's leading families. These men were called the patres, the fathers, from whom the word patrician descends. But these weren't elected officials, reflecting the will of the people. They were more like a shadowy council of elders, and they wielded one terrifying power that even the king feared. These men met not in marble halls and grand chambers, but in simple buildings, sometimes even outdoors. Their benches were wooden, not gilded. Their influence, however, was anything but humble. Officially, the Senate had no right to make laws. They served as advisors to the king, nothing more. But every king obsessed over keeping them happy. Why? Because the Senate controlled something more valuable than armies or gold. They controlled legitimacy. In ancient Rome, legitimacy was everything. Without it, a king was just a man with a crown, an imposter, a usurper, a target. Here's something your history teacher probably never mentioned. When a Roman king died, something absolutely unprecedented in the ancient world happened. The throne didn't simply pass to a son or a chosen successor. The Senate didn't just advise on the selection of a new king. No, for 5 days, each senator became king. That's right. During what's known as the interregnum, every 5 days, a different senator exercised supreme power, commanding the army, speaking for the gods, controlling the fate of the city. This was the office of interrex, king for 5 days. Think about that. The so-called advisors of Rome had a built-in system that regularly gave them a taste of absolute power. Imagine the temptation, the ambition, the secret alliances and rivalries that must have simmered beneath the surface. And you wonder why, after centuries of this, they decided they didn't need kings anymore. During the interregnum, the Senate could do more than simply wait for the next monarch. They controlled the religious records, the treasury, and, crucially, the official lists of kings. Some scholars believe they used this power to erase certain rulers from history entirely. We know of 7 kings, but what if there were more? What if some were too weak, too foreign, or too resistant to Senate control? The Senate had the ability to burn scrolls, erase names, and rewrite the official narrative, literally shaping the memory of Rome. Let's talk about King Servius Tullius, the 6th king of Rome. He was an outsider by birth, a reformer by temperament, and he did something revolutionary. He tried to bypass the Senate altogether, appealing directly to the common people, the plebeians. He restructured Roman society, expanded voting rights, and built the first walls around the city. The Senate, made up of the old elite, hated him for it. Here's where our story takes a sinister turn. Servius was ultimately murdered by his own son-in-law, Tarquin the Proud, but newly uncovered evidence both in ancient texts and in archaeological findings suggests the Senate didn't just allow it, they orchestrated it. According to Roman historians Livy and Dionysius of Halicarnassus, several senators met with Tarquin in secret, weeks before Servius's assassination. Was this coincidence? Or the first political assassination in Western history? Remember, the Senate controlled the auguries, the religious rituals and omens that legitimized any new ruler. Without their blessing, even a successful coup meant nothing. The gods would not recognize you. Power in Rome was as much about the will of the divine as it was about the will of men. Tarquin the Proud, Rome's last king, made a fatal mistake. He believed that once he had seized power, he no longer needed the Senate. He stopped consulting them, stopped the morning salutations, stopped pretending they mattered. This arrogance would be his undoing. You probably know the story of Lucretia, the noblewoman whose tragic fate sparked the revolution against Tarquin. But here's what you might not know. Lucius Junius Brutus, the man who led the revolution, was already a senator. The entire rebellion was coordinated through existing Senate networks. Think about it. How does a popular uprising suddenly have perfect organization, funding, and most importantly, legitimacy? Because it wasn't a spontaneous uprising, it was a Senate coup disguised as one. When Tarquin fled Rome in 509 BCE, the Senate didn't install a new king. Instead, they created a system where they would never need a king again. The Roman Republic was born, a government with 2 annually elected consuls, each holding limited executive power. And who controlled the elections? Who did the consuls report to? The Senate, of course. The Roman Senate, once the shadow behind the throne, now ruled openly. For nearly 5 centuries, it served as the heartbeat of the Republic. Its members, drawn from Rome's aristocratic families, dictated war and peace, managed the treasury, and appointed generals. More importantly, they set a precedent. A legislative body, checking the ambitions of any single ruler, would become the model for future civilizations. What can we learn from this shadowy history? First, power doesn't always rest where it appears to. The face on the coins, the man in the purple robe, is not always the one in control. Second, those who control legitimacy, who define what is acceptable, who is recognized, who is remembered, control everything. Third, revolutionary change often comes not from the outside, but from within the system itself. The Roman Republic wasn't born out of pure democratic ideals. It was born from a calculated power grab by the Senate. The next time you hear about the Roman Senate, remember, before they were the defenders of the Republic, they were the shadow behind the throne. And when that shadow grew tired of standing behind power, it simply took it. The echoes of their actions shaped not only the fate of Rome, but the very foundations of Western political thought. The story of the Senate's rise is a reminder that history is often written and rewritten by those who survive to tell it. If you enjoyed this historical journey, please support our channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to click the bell icon